If your bank account is flat despite a six-figure salary, you are not failing at personal finance. You are surviving a systemic extraction of your capital. As of May 2026, the Pew Research Center confirms a terrifying economic divergence. The demographic earning above $200,000 now weaponizes artificial intelligence as a wealth multiplier. Meanwhile, the intellectual middle class earning between $100,000 and $150,000 statistically registers it as a terminal threat to their careers. You think you are managing a currency problem, but you are actually trapped in a behavioral loop designed by consumer architecture to monetize your professional exhaustion. Welcome to the era of empty success. Your direct deposits look like upper-class wealth, but your reality is working-class financial anxiety. The reason for this severe discrepancy is a mathematical certainty that is actively compounding, and economic models project it to reach a critical breaking point by the fourth quarter of 2026. To understand why your high salary feels identical to poverty, look at a highly specific behavioral profile. Let us call him Mark. He is 40 years old, a mid-level project manager in Austin, Texas, pulling in $190,000 a year. Austin is a market where the median rent has surged 22%, while project management roles like Mark's have seen a 30% real wage stagnation since 2024. For 15 years, Mark's organizational skills were his economic moat. Today, that moat is being systemically repriced by algorithms. Automation is not replacing Mark entirely. It is methodically targeting and absorbing his allocation tasks. As those administrative tasks are stripped away by code, his actual market value evaporates, leaving him in a profound identity crisis. He feels fundamentally obsolete at his own desk, despite the paychecks still clearing twice a month. Here is the critical misunderstanding about money at this stage of professional life. When you reach your 40s, wealth is no longer about acquiring objects or broadcasting status. Money is entirely about veto power. It is the strict financial leverage required to veto an unreasonable demand from a distressed manager or to veto the terrifying insecurity of an automated layoff. When your liquid reserves are empty, you lose your veto power. You become a hostage to the very salary that was supposed to set you free. You are losing your veto power, not because you lack intellectual discipline. Your neurobiology is engaged in a losing battle against the systemic design of modern consumer architecture. When algorithmic threats begin destabilizing your career certainty, your biological hardware reacts predictably. Cortisol levels elevate, placing the amygdala in a perpetual state of red alert. To neutralize this chronic stress, the human brain aggressively seeks out short-term, neurosoothing mechanisms. Behavioral economists define this exact phenomenon as retaliatory consumption. It is the subconscious act of buying luxury takeout, booking impulsive weekend getaways, or maintaining a dozen digital subscriptions to artificially reclaim a sense of control over your environment. The consumer technology industry understands this biological vulnerability perfectly. They have engineered digital ecosystems characterized by zero-barrier transactions. With a single facial scan, wealth extraction occurs before your logical reasoning can even engage. Let us translate this psychological trap into cold, undeniable math. On a $190,000 salary, your actual take-home pay is roughly $11,000 a month. $5,000 vanishes immediately into fixed costs like a mortgage, insurance, and an auto loan. But then comes the fatigue tax. This is not a lack of willpower. It is a systematic extraction where the economy drains your energy at the office, then sells you temporary relief at a 300% markup. It is that $42 artisanal meal delivery because you were too mentally drained to open the refrigerator. Or that $273 automatically extracted every 30 days for digital services you barely use. That specific $273 recurring charge does not just cost you money. At a net pay of $68.75 an hour, it costs you exactly 4 hours of your life energy. That is half a day of your existence sacrificed to an algorithm you do not even use. For our case study, Mark, this fatigue tax consumes an astonishing $5,400 a month. That is nearly half of his net income, actively deployed, just to cope with the baseline stress of his occupation. These subtract the $5,000 in fixed costs and the $5,400 in fatigue tax from his $11,000 take-home pay, and he is left with a severely marginalized surplus of just $600. Going bankrupt on a high income is not an illusion. It is a precise mathematical equation driven by systemic fatigue. You are simply caught on the wrong side of a massive systemic income downgrade. To understand the sheer gravity of this, we must anchor our perspective in macro data. The Wall Street Journal recently pointed out, leaning on deep analysis from the New York University Stern School of Business, that we are living through what is clinically classified as the Great Middle Skill Hollow Out. Professor Scott Galloway's recent modeling accurately projected this trajectory. If you do not own the automation process, the automation process will inevitably own your headcount. Major corporations are not going to announce massive, headline-grabbing layoffs to alarm the market. Instead, they are actively executing silent redundancies, deliberately failing to replace middle managers who leave, and letting large language models absorb the remaining workflows. Economic forecasts indicate this structural shift will reach its absolute peak integration by December of 2026. This leaves you with a rapidly closing window. You have exactly until the end of that year to mathematically defend your household balance sheet before the open market permanently adjusts your compensation downward. Panic is not a strategy. To survive this impending economic recalibration, we must shift immediately from a posture of fear to the cold and calculating mindset of a tactician. We are going to restructure your defensive cash flow using mechanical precision. The first defensive protocol is implementing inverse budgeting. The singular goal here is to forcefully reintroduce cognitive friction into your spending habits. The exact moment your paycheck clears, an automated banking protocol must instantly route 30% of that capital into an inaccessible external defensive account. You are mathematically forcing your neurobiology to survive on the remaining 70%. By artificially starving your primary checking account, you surgically sever the financial supply line that funds your fatigue tax. The second protocol requires directing that newly created 30% surplus against your liabilities with absolute prejudice. Though in an economic landscape where your baseline skills are facing a 30% devaluation, carrying credit card debt at a 19% interest rate is a mathematical death sentence. You must execute a strict debt avalanche. You take that sequestered capital and mathematically annihilate your highest interest obligations first, regardless of the balance size. This phase is not about feeling good or celebrating small personal wins. This is ruthless tactical capital allocation, designed entirely to stop the compounding hemorrhage of your net worth. However, aggressive saving and debt elimination are merely financial tourniquets. They stop the immediate bleeding, but they do not cure the underlying vulnerability. The ultimate strategic defense for the next decade is skill arbitrage. Instead of viewing artificial intelligence as an active adversary, you must utilize it to ruthlessly audit your current professional output. If you can leverage these exact algorithms to compress a 40-hour corporate workload into 20 hours, You do not ask your management for more tasks. You silently reclaim that invisible surplus as time equity. You then deploy that time equity to acquire cash-flowing digital assets. Do not aim for vague, passive income. Target a microsoftware business with a 4.2 earnings multiple. By diverting your $5,400 fatigue tax for just 6 months, you acquire the $32,400 principal required to own a cash-flowing digital asset. The strict mathematical goal is to replace 100% of your labor income within 12 years. You must systematically detach your financial survival from the archaic dependency of a biweekly salary, where you are paid strictly for your physical presence, and pivot toward models where you are compensated entirely for your output. Success in the latter half of this decade will not be measured by the prestige of your corporate title, nor will it be measured by the gross revenue listed on your tax return. It will be measured entirely by how long it takes the system to exhaust you, and exactly how much veto power you retain to look at an unacceptable professional situation and say no. The algorithm is evolving rapidly. Subscribing to this channel is the first tactical step in recoding your financial biology before your skills are permanently repriced.